afternoon, everyone. I am Angie Cronenberg. I'm the president of Encompass, and I'm so happy to have with me today Brian Gregory. He is the director of product marketing for Intermedia Cloud Communications. We're so excited to bring this presentation to you. Brian, welcome.
Hey, great to be here, Angie. Thank you.
Yeah. So for those in our audience that are not familiar with Intermedia, why don't you give us some background?
Sure. Let me, because we can't talk without slides, I'll throw up a little slide
Mhm.
just to kind of give you a perspective on who we are. So Intermedia has been around for about 30 years. We started as a company. Oh, actually, we're the first company to be involved in hosted Microsoft Exchange. Still a big part of our business, but probably about 15, 20 years ago, we started getting into hosted telephony, hosted PBX, evolving into unified communications. So as we sit here today, we're a proprietary stack, unified communications and contact center solutions provider, and we sell that predominantly through our channel partners. So we have a small percentage of our business is direct to enterprise, but the vast majority is to the partner community. That partner community can
Okay,
be VARs, MSPs, and communication service providers.
that's
So as you
great.
see here, our business is roughly 360 million. We have a
Mhm.
lot of employees that are tied up in research and development. This is a very competitive marketplace selling business services. And so we invest a lot back into the business. And as you can see here, our monthly churn is quite low, which I think is a real testament to our product, our service, our development elements that can kind of continue to evolve and make these products better and better.
Hey, thank you. That background is really great. And I've got a number of questions we're going to go through and talk with the audience today. But I also want to let audience members know there is a Q&A feature as part of the Zoom platform, and feel free to use it. And I will get to your questions as well. So let's hop right on in. So the transition and paradigm shift that's taking place in the communication service and the business market generally, can you just give us your perspective on what's taking place and the opportunities related to that?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. What's happening right now in the business services marketplace, particularly for communications service providers. Um, Service providers, when I talk business services, I'm kind of talking predominantly hosted telephony services, supporting small businesses all the way up through enterprise.
Mhm.
Service providers were very early to this market. Probably in the early 2000s, they started to embrace um, network-based capabilities to offer business services to their business customers. And as we sit here today, they have they have control of probably 40 to 50% of the US market when you look at number of employees that are using hosted telephony that are being delivered by the service providers that we all know and love: Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, and then a litany of names below that. So it's really interesting that they control a large part of this market. There is a number of technology providers, most notably BroadSoft, Metaswitch, that were very instrumental in developing these technologies, sold that to service providers, then those service providers created service offerings. So now you have this market that the service providers control a big chunk of. It's a multi-billion-dollar market. But frankly, we're in a bit of a transition, right? There's a lot more challenges taking place in this market. Again, this data is from the Cavell Group. They're a great analyst firm that provides a lot of perspective to the market, particularly in business services. But you can see here, one of the things that's happened in the last several years is the rise of Microsoft Teams. You can see their growth rate is going, very, very well. Over-the-top providers, BD would be considered an over-the-top provider. Ring Central, 8x8, Nextiva,
Mhm.
those are the names you would think of there. And in the middle here are the tier one service providers, the big names, and then local providers, probably the tier two and tier three. It's a challenging competitive market. Teams have taken a lot of share. Over the top is taking their share. And these local providers and big tier ones, are a little more challenged. And it's kind of interesting. There's kind of a couple things that are going on. Overall in the market, you could say this market is still growing. It has not reached saturation by any means. The reason I say that is most analyst firms, I mean, the low hanging fruit in this market is taking premises based equipment, key systems, PBXs that sit on a customer site, and businesses are moving away from that and going to cloud based. That transition is only probably a third to a half of the way through. So there's still a lot of businesses that haven't moved from one world to the next. And it will happen because those old systems are just going away, and cloud is the preferred buying model for a service like we're talking here. The other interesting thing here is businesses prefer to buy from service providers. They have long-standing relationships, and study after study point to service providers for technology solutions, such as what we're talking about today, as the preferred buying. So you have service providers controlling a big part of the market, a large market here, $15 billion today, growing, continue to grow. But the third element of that is the vendors that are providing these technology solutions are radically changing. So BroadSoft was acquired by Cisco. They started discontinuing and started moving things more to their WebEx platform, away from sort of a traditional in the network platform. Microsoft bought Metaswitch. Over the last several months, they discontinued their UC platform. They announced in June that they're laying off a large portion of their support and engineering staff. And they may get their assets may get bought by somebody, but they've started to announce some end of life elements around their call feature server and their enhanced application server, which is the core elements for class 5 switching plus feature servers to deliver unified communications and those technologies. So to sum up, we have a big market, but we have a major technological paradigm shift that's taking place. And service providers, as we see here today, really are starting to make a decision on what direction they want to go.
Yeah, and that's a really important point that you're making. To give us a little bit more information about how to make the decision to move to the new technology. What should service providers be thinking about? And is it the same thing that, customers should be thinking about?
Yeah, as we start to look at this, we've kind of put the options that a service provider have into 5 main categories. And let me break this up into 2 pieces here. So let me share with you the first 3, which are kind of the more prevalent thing. And the first thing I'll talk about here, and just to back up, yeah, obviously I'm with Intermedia. I do have a perception here, a preconceived perception, but I've also been a product manager at service providers. These are the things that I would be thinking about as a
Mhm.
product manager, and things, decisions and elements in my strategy that I might be thinking about as I move from where I am today to the next stage. Certainly, status quo or band-aiding what they have today is a viable option. Doing another feature server is another option, or
Mhm.
moving to the cloud is a third. So let me quickly run through each of these with a few slides that kind of to kind of give a little more commentary to them. So status quo is I think is a very rational argument for some service providers. What we're seeing in the market today is looking at keeping the underpinning feature server and class 5 soft switch, but replacing the front end of that, replacing the soft phone, the soft client. So you have kind of a new skin to the product, but underneath it's kind of the same thing.
Mhm.
So it's low cost, it's minimal disruption, but I mean, there are a couple of pitfalls to that. And let me just kind of run through a couple of things. The biggest is pace of innovation. this is we compete and win in the market against all the big names in unified communication. So we know we have to be nimble, we have to have the right products in market at the right time. So we are aggressive. The pace of innovation is something that absolutely, what you're open by band-aiding, you're kind of opening up the lack of innovation. If you look here on the right, this is some more information from Cavell. They asked service providers where they want to spend their money in the next 12 months. And one of the biggest things, is integrating AI in the product portfolio. Well, obviously, band-aiding a solution is not going to get you those AI and those next generation features. Secondly, there's underlying vendor risk. You have vendors that are leaving the market or having a skeleton crew. That's going to potentially lead to outages and customer dissatisfaction. And lastly, let me just talk a little bit like churn and loss of economic returns, because I've done some modeling around this. This is kind of a high level model, but it really gets to the heart of the matter of, if you're not growing quickly and your churn continues to rise, you could quickly find yourself in a place where more customers are leaving than are coming in, and your product becomes less and less viable. So, quick analysis here. There's a status quo sort of environment, intermedia environment. I mean, I've already talked about our churn rate. Our gross ads are quite solid as well. So I stacked our numbers against sort of a status quo condition where churn rate starts at about 1.5%. And don't forget, 1.5% is a lot. 1.5% is you're losing 20% of your customers a year. Put a rate of change on that. And what does that look like after 5 years? So I started with 10,000 seats and I just projected that forward. And what you see is you really start to churn up so many customers if you're not growing your business, and you're not, you're losing a lot of customers to not having a competitive product out there. And you can see here, as I model out Intermedia over 5 years, it's a 2x increase. Again, this is an example, a high level example, but not investing in the platform certainly opens you up to competitive threats, and you need a lot of things going for you in this market to continue on that growth trajectory. So that's one thing, is sort of the status quo. The second thing is the case for, like, okay, you've already invested in an infrastructure and a methodology for deploying business services. Perhaps you just replace what you have and put in a new feature server. So it's great. I mean, it's the same operational model, a similar cost model. Resources are already there. They already understand how to do it. So it's if you have a decent product here, it's certainly a viable option. But as I look at sort of some pitfalls around that, one, economies of scale, right? A cloud-based provider like Intermedia, with hundreds of thousands and millions of seats, hundreds of thousands of customers, we can just be more efficient, and we can just be more cost efficient in how we run our business, and that basically translates into your overall price points. Seat licensing. I'm actually going to talk about this in a minute, but so I won't steal my own thunder. But perpetual seat licensing is historically how a lot of these products have been sold in the past. That can be cost inefficient, particularly if you're buying in advance of selling something. And it's there's a lot of time value of money going into having idle licenses and maintenance expenses that can be as high as 20%. And then speed of deployment. This is something that I saw personally when I was in service providers. And what I mean by that is kind of this idea of pace of innovation. As I come back to pace of innovation, feature servers, they're gonna develop features, but what we see on the service provider, so they develop the features, the service providers has the onus to deploy these features. And what we see in a lot of cases, feature providers, for a lot of reasons, don't want to deploy features quickly, so they quickly get into feature gaps. With a cloud-based provider like us, yes, we continue to develop features, we test them, we make sure they work as they should, and then we just launch them out in classic sort of DevOps model. That creates feature deficit, and like I said, this is a very competitive market, and you just don't want to find yourself having feature disparity. And then lastly, let me just talk about the cloud. I mean, I think as you think about service providers looking at a white label cloud offering, I mean, the thing you're going to gain is a strong product, integrated solutions, particularly with Intermedia, continue innovations. There's a cost savings element of this. Branding flexibility is a big thing for us. We want to make sure we put your brand out in front.
Yeah.
Perfect cost alignment to revenue, meaning you don't pay you don't pay for the service until you actually sell something. And then, yeah, I think there's cost benefits. And a lot, these cost benefits kind of come from the platform and how, kind of the model of this sort of outsourced model, right? Service provider, focus on the customer, focus on what you do best, selling, turning up customers, supporting them, billing them. A provider like Intermedia, cloud-based performer, does everything. You're the payload, we're the rocket. We help you do, we do all the platform management, back office integration, security, and we do it. And we have a lot of marketing and sales support as well that really help you sell and to be effective in the market. So that is, oops, I'll stop there,
Yeah.
and then I'll hit my other two points here after we chat.
So for those providers who just looked at those three options and decide that third option, let's go through the technology transition and move our services and offer services in the cloud. Tell us a little bit more about what options they have available to them in order to do that.
Yeah, good question. This is one that we're hearing a lot from our prospective customers and newly onboarded customers. And there is a clear cost advantage in migrating your base of customers that you have on in your existing infrastructure to if you were choose Intermedia, our service, right? I think there is a churn benefit, there is an economic benefit because you can start to turn down these assets and then replace them. But we have subject matter expertise in migrating customers. We've migrated BroadSoft accounts, we're migrating Metaswitch accounts. We have the capabilities and the tools to help migrate these from one place to the next. So we probably, in terms of migration, we probably onboard and migrate, you know, uh, hundreds of accounts per month. And so this is something that we have expertise in. Every situation is a little bit different. Some people want to keep what they have, and some people want to just what they call cap and grow. Some people want to migrate. So, whatever you're in the mindset of doing, we can support any and all of those scenarios.
That's great. And do you want to walk us through some of those scenarios and what they look like for potential customers?
Yeah. Let me. I just want to hit two more points real quick, Angie, because there's a
Sure.
couple of options out there that I wanted to bring apart. Because two other options that are viable in the marketplace. One is reselling. One is exiting this market, this business services, business communications market. So real quickly, um, reselling. When I'm talking about reselling, it would be certainly Zoom, Teams, RingCentral,
Hmm.
those are reselling another service offering from a cloud provider. Um, there's clear advantages there, right? You're selling a brand name that people know. You don't need to break down some barriers. Could speed more deals, time to market, things of that sort, time to close. Margins are going to suffer, right? You're reselling versus having something that's white label. White label is probably going to have 2 to 3x the economic returns of a resale model. Your brand, I think service providers already have strong brands. They already, people in their
Hmm.
markets already know who they are. There's really no
Yeah.
reason to deplete that. And then you're competing with all of these other people selling the same brand. So I'll just kind of talk about the markets just in whole. I think I've kind of hit on this quite a bit, but there's still a lot of market to go. These are some global numbers that we have. Um, they are, basically, to the points I've made earlier, there's a lot of migration to go. This is not wireless where you got to steal a customer from somebody else to bring them to you. This is still very much a growth mode kind of market where you can bring new customers in that are losing their service or their equipment is dying. So it's an attractive a market to be in. And then lastly, let me just talk briefly about Teams, because Teams is such the
Yeah.
becoming the.
I was hoping you
Oh,
get
I'm
there.
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
No, because you've mentioned, some of this underlying software that's being used, right, as
Right.
part of these products. And so I think it's great to get in a little bit more about this particular opportunity.
Sure, sure, sure. So Teams is become, I think, out of COVID and people working from home. We saw the rise of Zoom and Teams, and I think Teams, and both these companies have
Yeah.
leveraged that quite well. Teams, just with their business model and how Teams was bundled into the other solutions they offered became a big player in unify in I'd call collaboration in
Hmm.
document sharing, video, conferencing, things of that sort. So think of Teams as like, a video conference like we're having today on Zoom, but to move to a full-fledged unified communications, you would integrate in telephony into that, voice, PBX features into that Teams environment. Big market potential, as you can see the numbers here. We at Intermedia kind of took the tack of, how do we play in this market? This is too big a market to ignore. So
Hmm.
what we did was we took our voice platform and embedded it into Teams. So you can basically buy a solution, again, a private label, white labeled solution from a service provider that can be embedded into Teams seamlessly. That now you have the best of both worlds. You have Teams for collaboration and for
Hmm.
SharePoint and document sharing and document file storage, all the things that Teams does well, and a best of breed phone system, PBX phone system that's embedded directly into there. And in addition to that, we have contact center that embeds in that as well. So now you have kind of this integrated solution. And so as I look at maybe, reselling versus, private label, well, maybe there's
Hmm.
kind of a middle ground here where you start to think about segmenting. Ascend is our brand for exclusively for our service providers. We use that as our brand name, but again, our customers have the opportunity to brand whatever. It's more of a product name than a
Yeah.
custom account,
Yep.
company name. So you can start to think about, as the market gets bigger, perhaps up market, service providers are into Operator Connect and direct routing. These are big solutions, big SIP trunking products that most service providers are offering today.
Hmm.
But down market, where a unified communications or an integrated unified or PBX plus Teams solution starts to make more sense. Now you can start to segment the market and really cover all of that market off. So that's how I would look at the
Okay.
market
Okay.
from the
That's
Teams
great.
perspective.
Yeah, I think this is really helpful. As we're thinking about this transition to a new technology offering for customers, what are some of the other issues you think are front and center when we're making this kind of a decision that you're going to move to this new product?
Well, I think economics are a big one. And obviously, all this sounds great, and I can have the latest and greatest product, but does
How much is it going to cost?
how much is it going to cost? So we've done a lot of modeling on this
Okay.
topic, and I don't want, this is a bit of an eye chart, so I'm not going to go through every single one of these items. But as you think of like the big three things that you might be able to eliminate in your cost comparison, what this is looking at is comparing. I should back up and say, if I took all the costs that you have to deliver services today and I put that into a monthly cost per month cost, what does that work out to? Well, obviously, like the big thing is feature licensing. You're buying, perpetual software licensing. But when you start looking at how much that actually costs on a per user basis, and you factor in
Mhm.
things like software maintenance and and time value of money of these licenses sitting on the shelf, it gets quite expensive. I think it's $2 to $5 per user per month when you start looking at this license cost, when you start adding it all up. Data centers, another big one. Yes, service providers have their own internal data centers, but it's expensive. Like power's expensive. Um, there was a big thing with AT&T and hypervisor licenses with between VMware and Broadcom, and there's some lawsuits taking place there about how that cost is getting super expensive. So it just opens, on the capex side, on the opex side, the labor side of this. There's a lot that goes in behind the scenes to run a data center to deliver these services, and then customer care. In the case of Intermedia, we pretty much do all tier 2 and tier 3 customer care for you. So when you start to add all this up, I mean, it's easily $6 to $12 of cost associated with delivering a service offering such as this. And as you start comparing it to the as a service providers like Intermedia, now it's very, very apples to apples just in terms of what that cost is versus maybe what an as a service offering might cost.
Okay. And so for those service providers who are considering making the switch,
Yeah.
what's that like? Walk us through the transition.
First, I want to show you
This,
my great marketing slide here. My marketing team really
yeah, that's
made
kind of scary on the left there.
you like, well, here's all the stuff you got to do versus we make it simple. Well, I tell you what, Intermedia being a channel, a partner focused organization for so long, we kind of come into this market with a particular mindset. um, we don't require term commitments, we don't require minimums. We want to create a shared success model where we want to get you in market and selling, and we have a full team of people that just do that day in and day out, kind of make that transition, integrating all the billing and things of that sort.
Mhm.
But really, to get this into market, that's where we want to step up, and that's where we really have in our DNA the ability to step up and help our service provider partners sell and be effective in this marketplace. So that's really where I think we shine and help service provider customers be successful.
That's great. And then do you want to cover any other solutions that you're making available to service providers?
Well, our core solutions are unified communications and contact center, and then
Okay.
I also talked about our Teams integration solution. The only other product I would mention is which we just launched this year, which is getting a lot of attention, is our archiving platform. So if you think about in a law firm or a healthcare institution, how you want to have all of these communication mechanisms either recorded or tracked and then easily retrievable. So archiving has been
Mhm.
we've seen a lot of uptake, and even for businesses that I would consider like non-regulated, they just want to have a record of all their communications. And it helps me day to
Mhm.
day just looking back at stuff that did I send that, or did I do this, or I remember doing something. So it's really an effective tool to help. I'm getting some stuff there. Just to help you be better as an employee, and then as a business, run your business better. So that's an area in addition to our core product offerings, which I think is
Yeah.
interesting. And
Anything else
yeah,
on the horizon you want to talk to us about too? What's coming?
what's coming? I tell you
Yeah.
what, AI is such a huge part of our investments and product portfolio. We're doing a lot, particularly in the contact center. And it's really just amazing some of the things you can do with, you know, using AI to having a 30-minute conversation and summarizing that down into a paragraph or two, or looking at how a call is going and looking at sentiment and seeing if the call is going well or not going well. And if it's not going well, maybe that gets escalated up to a supervisor to step in and kind of diffuse a situation. But all these AI capabilities rolling into the platform, and actually even in our meeting in our meeting platform. So if you're doing a meeting like you see here on the
Hmm.
screen, we
Yeah.
also have a summarization tool that summarizes all that up and says, well, here's what the meeting was about. So AI is really creating a lot more exciting opportunities, and just making you know end customers more efficient in how they run their business. So it's really
Yeah.
exciting to have those kind of things out there, and just it's being on the edge of technology is kind of interesting.
I haven't used that AI feature yet to summarize
Well,
video
you should
calls.
do
Have
that.
you used it, Brian? How good is
I
it?
absolutely have. I absolutely
Okay.
have, and it's great. It's great.
Great. All right. Well, I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person at the Encompass Show in Denver, October 20th through 22nd. And thank you so much for
Oh,
Intermedia support of the show. So,
yes.
you want to tell us a little bit about what you got going on at the show in case anybody wants to come and talk to you some more about these opportunities?
Absolutely. So, first we will have we will be a sponsor of the event, so we'll have a booth, as you can see here on the show floor. But we have two sessions that we're going to be part of. The first, bright and early, 7:30 to 8:30 on Monday. We're going to have a breakfast and learn. I'll be presenting, some of the similar topics that I'm talking
Mhm.
about today with some other things that I'm going to weave into the conversation. But it's really going to be talking about business services, unified communications, the state of the market, and kind of the options that are out there. And then my VP, Mark Schur, will be
Mhm.
on an AI panel later that
Yeah,
afternoon. And like I said, we've been doing so much in AI, and we have such a great perspective on how it started, how it's evolving, and then how what maybe not only what businesses can do internally, but externally in their service offerings to make AI a more monetize AI and really make it more of an economic internal management, and then an economic tool to drive revenues. So yeah, we will be there. Please stop by and say hello at any of these events. And I
that's
also put
great.
my website out there, which goes, if you, I mean, I don't know if you, it's not malware, trust me. It just goes to our service provider website on intermedia.com, or you can just go to intermedia.com and look us up. So that's, yeah, that's pretty much
Okay, that's really
all I had to
great.
talk about today. Maybe there's some questions.
Um, I know I'm going over to the Q&A and no one has asked any questions. Oops, sorry, I
Oh,
didn't mean to knock my computer. Uh, well, I can't thank you enough, Brian, for spending part of your afternoon with me to talk about these new opportunities. Encompass has long supported our membership as we go through technology transitions. And in the 11 years I've been at Encompass, I've really seen a lot of transition happen. And it's been great chatting with you. I look forward to seeing you at the show and having the opportunity to hear more about the products and services that Intermedia offers. So again, thank you. Do you have any final words for the audience?
no, thank you so much for
Okay,
joining today. And Angie, thanks so much for hosting. It was a great session.
absolutely. Happy to do it anytime, Brian. Take care. Thanks to
Thanks.
the audience for joining us. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.